The Galactic Council chamber floated in the darkness between stars like a giant metal flower. Inside the massive station, Ambassador Catherine Morris stood at the human podium and tried to keep her hands from shaking. The alien called Imperator Zathrex was speaking, and his words made her blood run cold. Humanity has exactly 72 hours to leave all colonies beyond your home system, the Rexian leader announced. His voice came through the translators as sharp clicks and hisses. You will also surrender every military ship you possess and allow us to control your defense systems. These terms cannot be changed. Catherine felt her aide Daniel Hayes lean close to her ear. Ambassador Admiral Clark is waiting for your signal. He wants to move the Fifth Fleet into defensive positions. She gave a tiny nod, then spoke into her microphone. Imperator, with respect, we cannot abandon our people on those worlds. We have 23 colonies with over 400 million civilians living on them. You are asking us to leave our children behind. We are not asking, Zathrex interrupted her. His insect-like mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. The Council has voted. 17,000 worlds stand against you. Only 3 species chose not to vote. Humanity stands completely alone. The viewing screens around the chamber lit up with images of the alien armadas. The Rexian dreadnought fleet stretched across space with 7,000 massive warships. The Keltharian war spheres hung in formation, each one powerful enough to destroy an entire planet. The Zephyrian swarm ships filled the screens with hundreds of thousands of smaller vessels that moved together like schools of fish. Together they formed the largest military force ever gathered in the history of the galaxy. All of those weapons were pointed at human colonies. Catherine looked down at the datapad in her hands. The numbers made her feel sick. Even if Earth threw every ship and every soldier into the fight, the projections showed they would lose within 6 months. Billions of humans would die. If humanity was lucky, they would survive as slaves under alien control. If they were unlucky, they would be wiped out completely. The Council has decided that humanity expands too quickly and builds too many weapons, said Ambassador Veln, speaking for the Keltharian people. Her crystalline body reflected the chamber lights as she spoke. Her voice carried something that sounded almost like sadness. Your species has taken 43 worlds in only 2 centuries. You refuse to follow our guidance as a younger species should. You built weapons that frighten even the oldest races. The galaxy has made its choice, Ambassador Morris. It is better to cage humanity now than to face you as equals later. Daniel passed Catherine another message. This one came directly from Earth, from President Harold Grant himself. She read the 5 words and felt everything change. Do not surrender. Any terms? Catherine took a slow, deep breath. She thought about her daughter playing in the gardens of New Seattle, only 7 years old and unaware that alien warships hung in orbit above her home. She thought about the families on Horizon's edge who had traveled for years in frozen sleep to build new lives. She thought about every human being who had dared to dream of living among the stars. Imperator Zathrex, she said, keeping her voice level and calm. I must speak with my government before I can respond to your ultimatum. I request 24 hours to consult with Earth. The Vrexian's laughter rattled through the translation systems. You may have 6 hours, Ambassador. Not 1 second more. Our fleets are already in position around your colonies. When your time expires, we will begin with your most distant settlements. Perhaps watching the first few worlds burn will help you understand that we are serious. The communication link went dark. The chamber's lights dimmed as the alien delegations filed out of the room. Soon the human contingent stood alone in the vast empty space. They really mean to do it, Daniel whispered. They are going to kill everyone. Catherine activated her secure channel back to Earth. This is Ambassador Morris. Connect me immediately to President Grant and the Joint Chiefs. Authorization code Morris Theta 7. The holographic display flickered and then showed the Situation Room back on Earth. President Grant's weathered face filled the screen. Around him stood military commanders and government officials, all of them looking grim. We heard everything, Catherine, the president said. The decision has already been made. We will not back down from this threat. Sir, they outnumber us 1,000 to 1, Catherine said. She had to make sure he understood the reality of what they faced. Our military strategists say we have 0 chance of winning a conventional war against them. I know, Grant said. His expression was hard as stone. That is exactly why we are not going to fight them conventionally. Catherine blinked in confusion. Sir, I do not understand what you mean. The president leaned forward in his chair. Something in his eyes made Catherine's chest tighten with fear. It was not the fear of a man who expected to lose. It was something far more frightening. It was the look of a man who knew exactly what he was about to do and had accepted the cost. "Tell them the peace talks have failed," President Grant said quietly. "Then, Catherine, I want you and every single human in that station to get on the next transport home. You have 12 hours to evacuate. What are you planning to do?" she asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. Part of her had known from the beginning that the galaxy would push humanity too far one day. "Something we hoped we would never need to use," Grant replied. "Something we built not because we wanted to, but because we knew this day would eventually come. Tell them, Ambassador. Tell them they should have chosen peaceful coexistence when they had the chance." The transmission ended abruptly. Catherine stood alone in the empty chamber with her hands trembling. Daniel approached her slowly. "Are we really leaving?" he asked. "We are leaving," she confirmed. "Gather every human in Galactic Council space. I want them evacuated within 10 hours. And then what happens?" Catherine looked up at the viewing screens that still showed the massive alien armada blocking out the stars. She thought about her daughter's laugh, about the pioneer families on the frontier, about every human who had ever dared to reach for something better. "Then the galaxy learns why you should never corner humanity," she said softly. "They think we are weak because we tried to make peace. They think we are helpless because we did not immediately respond to their threats with violence. They are about to discover just how wrong they were." Daniel stared at her. "What did we build, Catherine? What has Earth been hiding all this time?" "I do not know the details," she admitted. "But I know this much. Our colonies all had fusion reactors far more powerful than they needed for normal operations. Our defense stations all had computer systems that seemed too advanced for simple coordination. Our military installations all had equipment that nobody could quite explain the purpose of. We told the galaxy it was all for rapid development and terraforming. We told them it was for research and communication. And the truth?" Daniel asked. Catherine looked at him with eyes that had suddenly aged years in the span of minutes. "The truth is that humanity has been preparing for this moment since the day we first met the Galactic Council. We smiled and we traded and we built relationships, but we also built something else, something terrible, something that we prayed we would never have to reveal." She activated the station-wide communication system. "Attention all human personnel on Galactic Council Station. This is Ambassador Morris. We are evacuating immediately. All personnel are to report to the docking bays within 1 hour. Take only what you can carry. We are going home." As the humans began their evacuation, the alien fleets moved into final attack positions around the human colonies. The commanders of those fleets believed they had already won. They believed humanity would either surrender or be crushed. They had no idea that every human installation they now surrounded, every defense station they had already begun to occupy, every colony they prepared to attack was actually part of the most devastating weapon system ever conceived. The countdown had begun. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn what happened when you gave humanity no choice but to reveal the monsters they could become when their families were threatened. The peace talks had failed. Now came the part that would be written in blood and fire across the stars. Catherine Morris boarded the last diplomatic shuttle and took one final look at the council chamber where she had spent 3 years trying to build bridges between humanity and the galaxy. She had failed. Diplomacy had failed. Now the only question was whether anything would remain of the galaxy after humanity showed them the price of that failure. The cargo ship Liberty's Dawn was never meant to carry passengers. Captain Lisa Chen stood on her bridge watching the chaos on the monitors as thousands of people rushed aboard with crying children and hastily packed bags. The ship groaned under the weight of humanity fleeing their homes. "Captain, we are at 160% capacity," her first officer, Jake Morrison, reported. His voice was tight with stress. "Engineering says the life support systems are failing. Tell them to make it work somehow," Lisa replied. She pulled up the tactical display and her stomach twisted into knots. The Vrexian fleet had moved into orbit around New Perth 30 minutes ago. They had not fired yet, but the message was clear enough. Surrender or die. "All ships, this is Evacuation Coordinator Bennett," a voice crackled over the emergency channel. "The deadline has been moved up. I repeat, the Council is demanding immediate compliance. All colonies have 4 hours to begin full surrender procedures." Lisa activated her ship-wide communication system. All hands prepare for emergency jump. We are leaving in 10 minutes whether we are full or not. But Captain, there are still people trying to get aboard. Jake protested. 10 minutes. Jake, that is all the time we have left. Down on the colony surface, Lauren Mitchell helped her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, climb into the transport shuttle. The old woman clutched a small wooden box that contained photographs of her grandchildren, who had been born on this world that humanity was now abandoning. I do not understand any of this, Mrs. Patterson said with her voice shaking badly. Why are they doing this to us? We never hurt anyone. Lauren had no answer to give her. She was just a school teacher, not a soldier or a politician. She taught children about Earth history and literature. She had never imagined she would live through a moment that would itself become history. Her communicator buzzed with an incoming call. It was her husband Carl, who was with the Volunteer Defense Force helping coordinate the mass evacuation. Lauren, you need to get on that shuttle right now. Carl's voice was urgent and frightened. They are saying the deadline just got moved up again. We might only have an hour left. What about you? She asked with her chest tightening in fear. I will be on the last transport out. I promise you. But you need to go now. The shuttle lifted off before Lauren could argue with him. Through the viewport, she watched New Perth shrink below her, the city they had built together over 15 years, the schools where she taught, the parks where families gathered, the homes where people had raised their children, all of it about to be left behind or destroyed. Aboard the human defense station Guardian 7, Commander Paul Jackson received an encoded transmission directly from Earth Command. He read the message 3 times because he could not believe what he was seeing. Sir, what are our orders? His tactical officer, Lieutenant Amy Rogers, asked. Paul looked around his command center at the 50 personnel who were all staring at him and waiting for direction. They had trained their entire careers to defend human colonies from threats. None of them had ever trained for this scenario, a complete retreat in the face of overwhelming force, abandoning everything they had sworn to protect. We are pulling back, Paul said finally. Every defense platform, every patrol ship, every military asset withdraws to the Terran system immediately. The command center erupted in shocked and angry voices. Sir, that leaves the colonies completely undefended, Amy protested loudly. Those are the orders. Lieutenant, Paul's voice was hard as steel. We have 6 hours to execute a full withdrawal. Any ship that is not through the jump gate by then will be left behind. They will slaughter the colonists. Someone whispered from the back of the room. Paul thought about the encrypted message at the bottom of his orders. 3 words that had sent ice water through his veins when he read them. Protocol Omega authorized. He had heard rumors about Protocol Omega during his classified intelligence briefings. Every senior commander in the military had heard the whispers. It was supposed to be the contingency plan that nobody talked about openly, the option that existed only in theory, the final safeguard that humanity had built in absolute secrecy, hoping and praying they would never need to use it. Execute the withdrawal orders immediately, Paul said quietly, and pray to whatever you believe in that we are making the right choice. The same scene repeated itself across 23 colony worlds scattered throughout human space. Millions of people flooding onto ships that were never designed to hold so many passengers, families abandoning homes and businesses and farms that represented years of hard work. Some colonies were too remote and too far from the jump gates to evacuate everyone in time. Those colonists who could not escape hunkered down in underground shelters and prepared for whatever came next. On the colony world called Haven's Reach, Governor Todd Harrison broadcast a final message to his people before the communication satellites went dark. To those who could not make it to the evacuation ships, we have not forgotten you. Earth has not abandoned you. I do not know what comes next, but I know this much. Humanity does not forgive easily, and we never forget our own. The message was intercepted by Galactic Council monitoring stations scattered throughout the sector. Imperator Zathrex listened to the governor's defiant words and clicked his mandibles together in contempt and amusement. Empty bravado from a defeated species, he said to his bridge crew. The humans run away like frightened prey animals, exactly as our projections predicted they would. But his intelligence officer, a younger Vrexian named Kethrin, was studying the sensor readings with growing concern and confusion. Imperator, the human military withdrawal is extremely coordinated. They are not panicking or making mistakes. This seems carefully planned in advance. Of course it is planned, Zathrex replied dismissively. "They are surrendering in an organized fashion. Have our forward elements begun occupation of the abandoned human defense stations?" "Yes, Imperator. But there is something strange about the situation. The humans evacuated their military installations completely, but they left all the power systems running at full capacity. The reactors, the computer cores, every system is still active and operational." Zathrex considered this information for a moment. They probably did not have enough time for proper shutdown procedures. "It is irrelevant to our mission. Begin landing ground forces on the primary colony worlds. Show these humans what happens when they defy the will of the Council." In the cold depths of space, the last human military vessel crossed through the jump gate that led back into the Terran system. Behind them, the massive gate structure shut down completely. Its lights went dark and its systems fell silent. Aboard her overloaded cargo ship now safely away from New Perth, Lisa Chen gathered her frightened passengers in the main cargo holds. 3,000 people from infants to elderly grandparents, all of them looking to her for reassurance that she honestly did not feel herself. "I will not lie to any of you," she told the crowd. "We are heading into uncertainty and fear, but we are heading there together as one people, and we are going home to Earth." A young boy who looked no more than 8 years old raised his hand nervously. "Captain, will we ever come back here?" Lisa thought about the classified bulletin she had received from Earth Command just before departure. The message that had made her hands shake when she read the implications. "Yes," she said, and realized with surprise that she actually believed her own words. "Yes, we will come back to these worlds. And when we do, I promise you that things will be very different than they are now." Back on the Galactic Council station, Catherine Morris boarded the last diplomatic shuttle with Daniel Hayes beside her. She took one final look at the massive chamber where she had spent 3 years of her life, trying to build bridges of understanding. 3 years of hoping that peaceful coexistence was possible. "Do you think they will actually attack the defenseless colonies?" Daniel asked quietly. "Yes," Catherine said with certainty. "They have already made up their minds about us. They see humanity as a threat that needs to be eliminated now while we are still weak enough to defeat." "And Protocol Omega?" Daniel whispered. Catherine did not answer him. She did not need to because they both knew exactly what was coming. The galaxy had declared war on humanity, and humanity, pushed into a corner with no escape and no options left, was about to show them why that was the worst mistake anyone had ever made in the entire history of galactic civilization. The shuttle's engines fired and carried them away from the station. Behind them in the darkness, the massive alien armadas began their final attack runs on the now defenseless human colonies. The commanders of those fleets believed the war was already over. They believed they had won before the first shot was even fired. They had no idea that in 72 hours, 90% of their ships would simply cease to exist. The Vrexian bombardment of New Perth began exactly when the deadline expired. Imperator Zathrex gave the order himself while, watching on his flagship's massive view screens as energy beams cut through the atmosphere and set fire to the abandoned human cities. "Below, target all infrastructure," he commanded. His weapons officers, destroy the power plants, the spaceports, the agricultural centers, leave nothing that could support human presence on this world. His tactical officer Vornak coordinated the devastating assault from his station. "Imperator, our scans confirm minimal life signs remaining on the surface. It appears that most humans successfully evacuated before we arrived. Most, but not all." Zathrex observed the thermal readings that showed small pockets of survivors hiding in reinforced underground shelters. A few thousand chose to stay behind. They will witness the price of defiance before the end comes for them. The same scene of destruction played out across 17 human colony worlds simultaneously. The Keltharian war spheres used their massive weapons to demolish the settlements on Horizon's edge. The Zephyrian swarms descended upon New Seattle like locusts, their combined firepower reducing the carefully maintained gardens and parks to smoking ash and rubble. The galaxy was sending humanity a message written in fire and death. On the bridge of the Keltharian command sphere, Ambassador Veln watched the destruction with what appeared to be crystalline tears forming in her optical sensors. "This is a dark day for galactic civilization," she said to her tactical coordinator. "But it is necessary for the greater good. Humanity would have been a plague upon the peaceful galaxy if we had allowed them to continue their aggressive expansion unchecked. They built too quickly and reached too far beyond their Capabilities, her coordinator agreed with the assessment. Better to stop them now than to face them as equals in another century, when they would be unstoppable. Deploy our occupation forces to secure the surface, Velen ordered. I want complete control of their sensor networks and communication relays within the hour. The occupation of human territory began with smooth efficiency. Vrexian troops landed on the abandoned human defense stations and found them completely empty, but still fully powered exactly as the initial reports had indicated. Keltharian engineers began accessing human computer systems and mapping their networks for intelligence gathering. Zephyrian swarms spread through the destroyed colonies like a living carpet, cataloging resources and surviving infrastructure. For 72 long hours, the assembled forces of the Galactic Council believed they had achieved total victory. The human resistance had collapsed faster than even the most optimistic military projections had predicted. The species that had worried the ancient races with their rapid expansion had folded, completely without firing even a single shot in their own defense. Then Earth transmitted a message to every single communications relay in Galactic Council space. The broadcast could not be blocked or intercepted because it used quantum channels that the aliens did not even know existed. President Harold Grant appeared on view screens across 1,000 different worlds. His expression was unnaturally calm in a way that made the alien diplomats watching feel instinctively uneasy, deep in their cores. People of the Galactic Council, Grant began in a steady voice. For 3 years, humanity has attempted to join your civilization through peaceful means. We sent diplomats and traders and ambassadors of goodwill. We followed your laws and respected your ancient territories and asked only to be treated as equals. You answered our peaceful overtures with threats and ultimatums and finally with violence against our civilians. Zathrex sneered at the transmission from his command chair. More empty words from a broken species. The humans have nothing left. But Grant continued speaking. You claimed we were too aggressive and too dangerous to be allowed freedom among the stars. You were wrong about the first accusation, but tragically correct about the second. We are dangerous. We have always been dangerous. But we tried very hard to show you our better nature first before revealing what we are truly capable of. The president's image was replaced by complex technical schematics and diagrams that made the alien scientists watching suddenly sit up straight in alarm. The equations and designs showed technology that should not be possible. 300 years ago, Grant's voice continued over the technical displays. Humanity developed our first antimatter containment systems. 200 years ago, we perfected quantum entanglement communication across unlimited distances. 150 years ago, we solved the mathematics of dimensional folding. We poured every single one of these technologies into a project we prayed we would never need to reveal to the galaxy. Admiral Helen Brooks sat in Earth's military command center deep beneath the surface, watching the alien fleet positions on her tactical display. Beside her, General Marcus Flynn coordinated with the other branches of Earth's unified military forces. All systems report ready and standing by, Marcus informed her quietly. Phase 1 protocols are armed and awaiting your authorization code. Helen nodded slowly and heavily. She had served in Earth's military for 37 years. She had fought against pirates and negotiated with alien traders and explored the dangerous edges of known space. Never in all those years of service had she imagined she would give the order she was about to give. Broadcast the final warning to all hostile forces, she said. Then we begin the operation. The transmission that followed was direct and simple and offered absolutely no room for misinterpretation or negotiation. To all Galactic Council forces currently occupying human territory, you have exactly 1 hour to withdraw completely from all human colonies, defensive installations, and sovereign space. This is your only warning. Failure to comply will result in total military annihilation. You have seen what we chose to show you of our capabilities. You are about to learn what we chose to hide until this moment. Zathrex laughed loudly when he heard the warning. The humans have lost their minds with desperation and fear. They have no fleet and no weapons and nothing left. What could they possibly threaten us with? His intelligence officer, Catherine, however, was studying the human technical schematic still broadcasting across all channels. His mandibles began trembling as understanding slowly dawned in his mind. Imperator, he said with his voice rising in pitch. These designs show quantum entanglement paired with antimatter charges. Dimensional folding used for instantaneous positioning across vast distances. I believe the humans have weaponized instantaneous teleportation technology. Impossible, Zathrak scoffed dismissively. That technology has been purely theoretical for thousands of years. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical, which would explain why their colonies all had massively oversized fusion reactors, Catherine interrupted frantically. Imperator. Every human installation we have occupied has the same configuration. Enormous power generation systems connected to quantum processors and what we assumed were simple communication arrays. Zathrax felt the first cold stirring of genuine doubt. What exactly are you suggesting? I am suggesting, Catherine said quietly with absolute terror in his voice, that we are currently standing inside their weapons right now. The hour deadline passed with no response from the alien occupation forces. They had invested far too much in this military campaign to back down now, based on what they still believed was human bluffing and desperation. Admiral Helen Brooks checked the countdown chronometer one final time. The deadline has expired, she announced to the command center. May whatever gods exist across this galaxy forgive us for what we are about to do. Execute Protocol Omega immediately. Across 23 colony worlds, aboard 77 captured human defense stations, inside 812 evacuated military installations, the systems that the aliens had assumed were simply computer servers and communication equipment activated simultaneously with perfect coordination. They were not servers or communications equipment. They were quantum entanglement devices paired with antimatter charges. Bombs that did not need to be delivered because they were already in position, waiting dormant inside every human facility the aliens now occupied. The detonations occurred instantaneously across all locations. The Vrexian flagship Pride of the Imperium, the largest and most powerful warship in known galactic history, simply ceased to exist in a brilliant flash of matter-antimatter annihilation. The Keltharian command sphere lasted exactly long enough for Ambassador Veln to understand what was happening before she and 15,000 of her crew were instantly vaporized into component atoms across the occupied colonies. Every single alien military installation that had been captured from human control became a perfectly positioned bomb. The quantum entanglement technology meant there was no warning signal and no chance to detect or disable the weapons. One moment the occupation forces were securing human territory. The next moment they were gone completely. In the span of exactly 15 seconds, humanity destroyed 93% of the invasion fleet without firing a single conventional weapon. 7,000 Vrexian warships vanished. 400 Keltharian warspheres were annihilated instantly. 300,000 Zephyrian swarm ships were erased from existence. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 48 hours after the event that would forever be known as the Quantum Purge. The chamber that usually held representatives from 17,000 different civilizations now contained barely 3,000 delegates. The rest had fled back to their homeworlds in absolute terror that humanity might decide their planets were next. The Zephyrian Queen Nexus, one of the oldest living beings in the entire galaxy, addressed the shocked assembly through her neural interface connection. We have witnessed an act of coordinated violence unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Humanity has demonstrated a capacity for organized destruction that exceeds our worst projections and fears. The question before this council is simple. How do we respond to this? Councillor Dreth of the Marathian Combine spoke up with his scales visibly dulled by extreme stress. Respond? What can we possibly do against them? They killed 400 million of our people in 15 seconds. Our combined fleet is completely gone. Our military capacity has been reduced to almost nothing. If we attempt retaliation, what is to stop them from doing this again to our homeworlds? But we cannot simply accept this massive slaughter, protested Representative Vorn from the Cassian Alliance. 400 million souls were lost. The humans have committed the largest act of genocide in all of galactic history. After we fired on them first, came a quiet voice. From the back section of the chamber, every eye and sensor and optical organ turned to focus on Ambassador Yith of the Praxian Federation. Her species had been one of only 3 that had refused to vote for the original attack on humanity. We declared war on them, Yith continued with her tentacles coiling in visible agitation. We gave them an impossible ultimatum. We bombed their civilian colonies. We killed thousands of their people in the initial bombardment. And now when they defended themselves and retaliated, suddenly we call it a massacre. This council initiated the hostilities. What exactly did you expect would happen? We expected them to surrender like any rational species would, said Imperator Vexith, the replacement for the dead Zathrex. His voice sounded hollow and haunted. He had personally lost 3 of his broodmates in the destruction. All of our projections showed they could not possibly win against us. Any logical species would have accepted our terms rather than face certain extinction. But humans are not like us, are they? Ambassador Yith said carefully. My people have been studying them since they first achieved faster-than-light travel capability. They form intense emotional bonds with their family groups. They will die fighting for abstract concepts like freedom and honor, and apparently they are exceptionally skilled at hiding exactly how dangerous they truly are until the precise moment they need to reveal it. Back on Earth, Catherine Morris found herself in a completely unexpected position. After returning from the Galactic Council station, she had assumed she would be blamed for the failure of diplomatic relations. Instead, President Grant had promoted her to Secretary of Interstellar Relations and given her what seemed like an impossible task. We need to build a genuine, lasting peace, Grant told her during a private meeting in his office. What we did was necessary for our survival, but it cannot be how humanity is remembered by history. We cannot become the monsters they feared we were. Catherine looked down at the casualty report spread across his desk. The final count stood at 418 million alien casualties. Human losses totaled 11,043 souls. Sir, they hate us now and fear us deeply. How am I supposed to negotiate any kind of peace when half the galaxy will not even accept our communications? The same way you have always operated, Grant replied firmly. With complete honesty and truth. Show them who we really are, not just the weapons we built or the violence we are capable of unleashing. Show them exactly why we built those weapons in the first place. The strategy session included Admiral Helen Brooks, General Marcus Flynn, and Secretary of Defense Christine Palmer. Together they created what would become known throughout the galaxy as the Transparency Initiative. We are going to show them everything we have, Catherine explained to her assembled staff members. Every ship design, every weapon system, every defense installation. Complete transparency about our full military capabilities. Her aide Daniel Hayes looked absolutely shocked by this plan. That is insane. We would be giving away every single strategic advantage we currently possess. Or, Catherine countered thoughtfully, we would be proving conclusively that we are not planning to use those advantages offensively. We won the war in 15 seconds. Now we need to win the peace that follows. And the only way to accomplish that is to show them we are not the existential threat they imagined. Admiral Paul Jackson, promoted after his role in coordinating the massive evacuation, was given command of the first human diplomatic fleet, 5 ships, all armed but broadcasting complete technical specifications of their capabilities to any sensor system that observed them. This feels completely wrong, his tactical officer Amy Rogers said as they prepared to depart on their first diplomatic mission. We are supposed to keep our military capabilities classified and secret. We already tried keeping secrets, Paul replied calmly. That secrecy is what made them afraid enough to attack us preemptively. Now we try the exact opposite approach, complete and total honesty about everything. The diplomatic fleet's first destination was the Praxian Federation, one of the 3 species that had refused to vote for the original attack on humanity. Ambassador. Yith met them at the outer orbital station with her tentacles moving in patterns that Paul's translator identified as cautious but genuine welcome. Admiral Jackson, she said through the translation device, your people have caused quite a significant disturbance in galactic affairs. We defended ourselves and our families. Paul replied simply, nothing more and nothing less than that. And now you arrive in armed warships to do what exactly? Yith's tone was genuinely difficult to interpret. To talk honestly, Paul said, to show you that the weapons we used were purely defensive in their nature and purpose. To prove that we do not want conquest or domination over others. We simply want to live in peace and be left alone. Yith led them to a large conference chamber, where Praxian scientists and military strategists were waiting. Paul felt Amy tense up beside him, but he had given extremely strict orders to everyone. No weapons visible, no threatening postures of any kind. They were present to explain their actions, not to intimidate anyone. Show us how you did it, Yith requested directly. Show us the technology behind your attack. Paul activated the holographic display system, and carefully walked them through the complete technical specifications of the quantum entanglement bombs. The Praxian scientists listened with expressions of growing astonishment and disbelief. "This is absolutely extraordinary," one of them said through their translator device. "The energy calculations alone are staggering. You must have dedicated enormous resources to developing this technology." "We did dedicate vast resources," Paul confirmed honestly. "For over a century, our best scientific minds worked on this project in complete secrecy. Do you want to know why we did this?" The chamber fell into complete silence. "Because we knew this day would eventually come," Paul said quietly. "We studied all of your recorded histories, your countless wars, your political structures. We observed how you treated younger species who did not follow your rules. We saw how you feared anything that might challenge the established galactic order. We knew that someday, somehow, you would perceive us as a threat and try to eliminate us before we became too strong, so we built our insurance policy in secret." "You planned for this war from the very beginning?" Yith asked with her tone completely unreadable. "We planned to survive no matter what happened," Paul corrected her carefully. "Everything else was simply hoping desperately that we were wrong about your intentions toward us." The meeting lasted for 6 full hours. Paul answered every single question they asked and showed them every technical detail they requested to see. When the session finally ended, one of the Praxian scientists approached him in private. "Admiral, may I ask you something that has been deeply troubling me?" "Of course you may." "These quantum bombs required enormous power sources to function. Fusion reactors far beyond what your colonies would actually need for normal civilian operations. The other species should have noticed this discrepancy. They should have questioned why you were building such massive power generation infrastructure." Paul smiled grimly at the observation. "They did question it extensively. We told them it was necessary for rapid terraforming operations and industrial development programs." Which was actually true as far as the explanation went. The very best lies are constructed mostly from truth. "And now you show us everything without hesitation?" "Now we show you everything," Paul confirmed. "Because the war is finished and over. We won decisively. We do not need the secrets anymore. What we desperately need now is for you to understand that we have absolutely no interest in using these weapons ever again, if it can possibly be avoided." 6 months after the Quantum Purge, the restructured Galactic Council convened for its first official session under the newly written charter. The chamber looked completely different now. The old tiered seating arrangement that had physically elevated the ancient, elder races above the younger species had been removed and replaced with a circular design where every single delegate sat at exactly equal height. Catherine Morris took her seat among the human delegation, now officially recognized as a full voting member of the council, with complete rights. Beside her sat newly appointed Ambassador Ryan Foster, a former colony governor who had personally lived through the horrific bombardment of New Seattle. "This feels strange," Ryan murmured quietly as the session prepared to begin. 6 months ago they were actively trying to exterminate us. Now we are supposed to work together cooperatively to govern the entire galaxy. "Not just supposed to," Catherine replied firmly. "We absolutely have to make this work. The alternative outcome is far worse for everyone involved." The session was formally called to order by the new council moderator, a rotating position that changed monthly between different species. This particular month, the role belonged to Ambassador Yith of the Praxian Federation. "This council is now convened," Yith announced to the assembled delegates. "We gather to address the Reformation Accords and establish new protocols for peaceful interspecies relations. The first motion comes from the human delegation." Catherine stood slowly, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes and sensor clusters and optical organs all focusing directly on her. "The Human Federation formally moves that this council adopt the Mutual Defense and Non-Aggression Treaty, which would strictly prohibit any member species from initiating hostilities against another member species without first obtaining unanimous council approval." Nervous murmurs rippled through the massive chamber like waves. The Vrexian delegation, now led by the somber Imperator Vexith, rose to speak.
"The Vrexian Imperium fully supports this motion.
"We have learned through terrible pain and loss the true cost of unprovoked aggression. We support any measure that prevents such tragedy from ever occurring again." It was a truly remarkable statement. The Vrexians had suffered losses greater than any other species in the brief conflict. Their military power had been utterly decimated. Their economy was crippled and struggling. Their ancient pride had been completely shattered. Yet here they stood publicly supporting a human peace initiative The vote was called and the results displayed. Of the 3,000 species formally represented in the chamber, 2,943 voted in favor of the treaty. Only 57 chose to abstain from voting, and not a single species voted against the measure. The Mutual Defense and Non-Aggression Treaty was officially adopted into galactic law. Admiral Paul Jackson stood on the observation deck of the human starship Determination, silently watching as the first joint human-alien patrol formation departed the station. His vessel had been paired with a Praxian ship and a Marathian cruiser for a scheduled 6-month patrol of the disputed frontier regions. "This is going to take considerable time to get used to," Commander Amy Rogers said beside him. "Working alongside the same species that were trying to kill us just months ago. Most of these particular ships and their crews were not part of the invasion force," Paul corrected her gently. "They are simply trying to do their assigned jobs the same as we are." "Do you actually trust them?" Paul considered the difficult question carefully before answering. "I trust that they are just as afraid of another devastating war as we are. That is enough for right now. Real trust can develop later with time." On the bridge of the Praxian vessel Thoughtful Tide, Captain Mirth watched the human warship with similar uncertainty and concern. Her first officer Venth expressed openly what the entire crew was privately thinking. "They could destroy us at any moment they choose," Venth said nervously. "All those defensive installations they have kept fully active and operational. If they suddenly decided to turn them into offensive weapons against us, then the entire galaxy ends in fire," Mirth replied calmly, "which is precisely why they will not do such a thing. I have studied human behavior extensively since this conflict began, Venth. They are fundamentally different from us in important ways. They do not seek domination over others. They want something far simpler and somehow far more dangerous than conquest. What is that? They want to be left alone to live their lives in peace. And they will do absolutely anything and sacrifice everything to protect that freedom, including committing genocide if they believe it is necessary, but also including building lasting peace if we give them that opportunity." The joint patrol encountered their first real crisis exactly 2 weeks into the mission. A distress call came through from a civilian merchant freighter that was under attack by pirates operating in an unregulated sector of space. Paul stood on his bridge, quickly coordinating tactical responses with the other 2 ships. "All vessels form up immediately. Standard rescue formation protocol. Humans take point position. Praxians cover the left flank. Marathians secure the right flank." The pirate vessels, suddenly seeing 3 fully armed military ships approaching their position, attempted to flee the area. The pursuit lasted less than an hour. The pirates were captured. The endangered freighter crew was rescued safely, and the 3 patrol ships regrouped in formation. "Well-executed operation," Captain Mirth transmitted directly to the Determination. "Your tactical coordination was excellent, Admiral. Your ships performed most of the difficult work," Paul replied diplomatically. "We simply provided covering fire and support. It was a relatively small moment in the grand scheme of galactic events, but it carried enormous significance. 3 different species that had recently been bitter enemies now working together seamlessly to protect innocent civilians. It represented exactly what the new galactic order was supposed to achieve." Back on the rebuilt colony world of New Perth, Lauren Mitchell stood in her newly reconstructed classroom. She faced 30 students, all of them human children who had been born on this world, teaching them about the history they had personally lived through. "Why did they attack us?" asked a young girl named Sophie whose family had completely lost their home in the bombardment. Lauren chose her words very carefully. "Because they were afraid of us. Fear makes people and species do terrible things to each other. But here is what matters most now. We did not let that fear control us afterward. We could have easily turned into the monsters they feared we would become. Instead, we chose to pursue peace. But we killed millions of them," a boy named Marcus pointed out seriously. "My father says we are heroes for defending our homes and families. But that many deaths, how can that possibly be heroic?" It was an extremely difficult question, one that adults across all of human space continued struggling with daily. Lauren decided her students deserved a completely honest answer. "It is not heroic," she said plainly. "It is tragic. Every single death in that conflict was a terrible tragedy. But sometimes tragedy is the unavoidable price we pay for survival. What matters most now is what we choose to do with the peace we bought at such a horrible cost." Do we honor everyone who died on both sides by building something genuinely better, or do we waste their sacrifice? The classroom fell into thoughtful silence as the children seriously considered this question. I want to build something better, Sophie said finally with determination. I want to make absolutely sure that no one else ever has to run away from their home the way we did. Then that is exactly what we will do, Lauren replied with a genuine smile. Together. President Grant, now serving the final months of his term in office, sat in his private office carefully reviewing reports from across human space. Secretary Catherine Morris had just finished briefing him on the current status of reconstruction, efforts and the successful integration of human forces into the new Galactic Defense Initiative. How is everything progressing? He asked Christine Palmer, his Secretary of Defense, who had joined them for this important meeting. Better than we had any right to expect, Christine replied honestly. The joint military exercises are actually producing positive results. Our people are learning to work effectively with alien crews, and the reverse is also true. There have been some incidents and tensions, but nothing that could not be resolved through communication. And the quantum defensive grid system? Christine's expression became serious. Still fully operational at all times. We have shared the complete technical specifications as we promised, but we have kept the activation codes under absolute human control. Several species have formally requested that we deactivate the entire system permanently. Absolutely not, Grant said with finality. That defensive system is the only reason we are sitting here having this conversation, instead of serving as enslaved subjects of the Galactic Council. It remains active until we are completely certain that no one will attempt something like this ever again. Some species argue that keeping it active is proof we do not trust them. Catherine pointed out carefully. They are completely correct, Grant replied bluntly. I do not trust them yet. Perhaps not in my lifetime.